subsequent to our in-camera session. I'd like to get ready.
Hit the door.
There was somebody below me, to be honest.
Just in case.
Okay, thank you. Subsequent to the in-camera session, I'd like to move that the committee authorizes administration to continue to negotiate the terms and conditions to facilitate the development of the kindergarten grade 12 francophone school site. Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Thank you. All right, moving on to the next section, on to number 4 on the agenda. Sorry, my agenda is just reloading here. Presentations and delegations. First up is the 2020 budget and 2020 through 2024 financial and capital plans. Administration will lead us through this next piece, and it's all yours, gentlemen.
While we pull the presentation up, I just wanted to say a few words and then hopefully set a context here. I know we created some confusion on what this step of the process was, so I wanted to share a little bit about our thinking, right, wrong, or indifferent. When we looked at the budget workshop and the package that was presented during the workshop, our original intention was that that was the working document, and that there was no need to bring it back to the committee, and that we would update it and put it on the website after it was approved February 25th. Now, going back and looking at notes, and then of course what we posted on our website led us to believe that's not the case, or led you to believe that was not the case. But our thinking was the time to dive into the budget was during the workshop, and that we didn't see the value in bringing it back when it hasn't been updated because nothing has been approved. That said, I take full ownership for that and apologize for the confusion. I believe that the presentation that you're going to see is going to deal with the details that you were hoping to see, the action, and in a way that allows the public to see the changes that you've made to the budget and what's actually in there. The document has been updated and is on your website. You've each got a hard copy, and I believe an electronic copy is on its way. And it will be updated once the approval is on February 25th, and with a whole bunch of other communications and marketing as well. Just wanted to clarify some of that confusion. Now, what we're going to do tonight, Mike's put together a number of slides that are going to walk us through the different sections, and I think we'll see.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, just to speak to that very briefly, thanks for the updated information. I think it would be prudent, but I think where this fell down for me personally was just an expectation. I thought one thing, and clearly administration had a different thought. None of it was right or wrong. So I think it would be important to implement a step, at some point later in the year, whether it's June, July or something, where we can say, okay, this is expectations around how we want this budget process to go. Everything from timing of the budget to what we want that committee, the whole meeting to look like, when we want this information. Just have that discussion earlier so that you can plan for it and that we can fully align on that expectation. So I think that would be a good compromise, but appreciate working to get this done. So I'll leave that with you, but I think that would be a good step for me anyway, personally, to get a better understanding of how this will go next time.
And thank you for that. Put words in Mike's mouth, but that's exactly the plan that we're pulling together. So I'm very confident the public and council is going to be better informed sooner and more frequently as the year progresses, including the quarterly reporting. So I think we're going in the right direction here.
Okay, thank you.
Do I need to buy you some more time, Mike?
I got Councillor Hendricks who can go for a second.
Right, sure. So we had talked at the budget workshop that perhaps a roadmap will be set up for the next budget. So we all have a chance to just have some input on the process and timing. I don't think we're having a spring planning session with this budget. At least I'm not hearing that. Are we having?
Title aside, the plan is to come back in April to adjust that tax rate and to make any adjustments. I think that was similar to what you used to call that. I don't know.
So is that a Saturday event or is this just a regular event?
Had you envisioned that far, Mike? I didn't see it being a Saturday event, but could be wrong.
Certainly a Saturday event.
my expectation is to.
So, for those of us who want to, we've gone through many processes that have been brought to us by the men regarding the budget. Certainly, this one's been completely different from all the rest. Wouldn't mind again just having a schedule that lays out expectations, but not only that, but when the council can have input for asks, so that the commissioners has enough time to review the history and get some background on it, and provide the numbers so that by the time it gets to the budget, that it's available, in its full form. So look forward to that. So I've asked that at the budget retreat, and we'll also bring it up here today. So hopefully that's
Yeah, definitely. Be part of the process. I think in years past, what I'm used to is actually coming forward with a report that lays out the entire budget schedule, what council can expect to see for budget process as a recommendation anyways, and then definitely having a conversation about what that looks like and getting some input from council around whether or not that meets the needs.
Thank you. And then one other item that was in there was we used to have the opportunity for the public to be able to present whatever they wish, what scale of issues that were, and that presentation would be set to a date that you could, say September the 15th, you had to have it in, and then council would then have a chance to look at those and say, yes or no, up or down, as to whether or not we actually move forward with even put the time and effort into those axes. So I think that was also a very important part of the process. So, thank you.
Yeah, definitely agree. I think the public engagement piece associated with this budget process was probably a little lacking from my perspective. We've talked to communications about doing some different things going forward. And certainly, again, I'm used to having a session with the public being able to come in and speak to council on whatever matters of interest they have. Preferably after we've released a proposed budget so that they can react to that. But that would be something that we would be building into the process for you going forward for sure. Yeah.
One more then, if I can, is the service levels discussion. It used to be part of the overall budget process so that you could debate it right there and then.
Yeah.
I wonder if that could be brought back as part of the process.
Yeah, I think that was another comment that came up at the workshop that we're definitely taking away and going to come back again going forward. I think the budget process, as much as you don't like to change it drastically from one year to the next, I think you will see some changes going forward, hopefully for the better. And definitely the service level conversation is one that we're mindful of and making sure that it gets incorporated into future budget.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just wanted to make a comment as Mr. Deller's working through the agenda here. There's probably room to ask questions along the way. Just if we could keep, just everybody keep letting me know, and I'll keep track and keep order here so that we can try and make sure that everyone has a good say. And yeah, off to the races. Thank you.
Sure, thank you. I'll just see if I can make this thing work. Maybe not. Maybe just grab the.
It was just working for Kemper.
Yeah, it's just.
Sorry about that. Just in terms of kind of an outline for the presentation, we'll do a bit of an overview of kind of where we're at. Talk some specifics about what's in the operating budget. A lot of the presentation focuses on the capital budget. I think that's where most of the changes out of the workshop happened. Just briefly touch on fees and charges, and then talk a little bit about what we heard during the public input sessions, and then look at some next steps coming forward. So at a high level, the budget currently sits at 1.6% of the tax increase. On the left-hand side there, you can see kind of what drives that 1.6% tax increase. We do have a bit of an uptick on maintaining services, 0.1%. Growth in services, again, if you remember back to the workshop, and I'm not sure what's happening here, but pretty sure I'm not changing it. Thinking back to the workshop itself, when we talk about growth in services and why you see a negative there, it's really related to the assessment growth that comes from actual real growth in the city. And that's a benefit to the overall budget. That's offset by some increases in expenditures, primarily from the BSRC coming online. Overall, though, there is a positive benefit to the tax increase of a 0.3 reduction. And then you add on service enhancements. So we are increasing services in a lot of different areas that we'll talk about in a few slides. But that in and of itself is a 1.8% increase to the tax levy. And again, all totaled overall 1.6% increase.
Yeah, wondering if you've got the slide show presentation on, and that's why it's skipping slides on you.
Oh, maybe.
Just let have a quick look at it, otherwise it's going to distract the heck out of you.
Sure. All right, hopefully this goes a little smoother. In terms of the 1.6% increase, again, it's lower than the 2% projected CPI for the province of Alberta for 2020. And if we look at neighboring municipalities, the overall average increase was 1.8%, so we're below that as well. In terms of what it means to the typical homeowner within the city, with an assessed value of about $440,000, it equates to about a $45 a year increase on their tax bill. From a utility rate perspective, they are going up as well. The overall impact, $25 approximately for the average household. It's about a 2% increase. And again, what we've done here is just passed along the increases that we get from the service providers on those utility services. A good graphic that was part of the open house in terms of year-over-year property tax increases going back to 2010. You can see the trend on this chart moving in the right direction in a lot of ways. A peak of about 5% back in 2010 as a tax increase to where we are today in terms of proposed increase at 1.6%, the lowest over that time frame. So again, heading in the right direction. Looking specifically at the operating budget, I know it's a bit of a busy pie chart, but this is essentially the operating budget broken out by department fundamentally and where we're spending the money. Infrastructure taking up a large portion of it. I should have mentioned here the infrastructure actually includes utilities. And as we kind of talked about as part of the workshop, the CAO office looks a little bit bigger here than it really should, as we did consolidation of the amortization expense lines within the CAO office. So going forward, that piece of the pie will be much smaller. Just looking more at the service enhancements that are built into the 1.6% increase in the operating budget list here. As I mentioned, BSRC being the biggest piece of this. Okay, for about 6 months operation of the BSRC. Again, really taking that on with no direct impact to the tax levy, using the growth dollars to fund that increase. We do have a few pieces around some technology that we're bringing into the organization. the HR system coming online, as well as City Works and asset management program. Should be a big benefit to the organization and to the citizens directly, as they'll be able to request city services easier and hopefully a little bit more user-friendly. We have some economic development initiatives, so we did set some budget dollars aside team to go out and pursue some of the activities that they have been to do so. Looking at contracting some IT in, and then looking at the Métis relationships and Indigenous relationships that we have within the community. Again, coming out of the workshops, received some direction from council around the city celebration, as well as the community garden pilot project. So we did find those dollars within the existing budget, so no impact on the tax levy for those two pieces.
Councillor Montgomery, you have a comment on that?
Yeah, just on the first one, of the 465,000, in the description here on page 11. Facility units, child mind, all that sort of stuff. But the actual cost of operating power, usage, all that sort of stuff, is that built into here?
I believe this is primarily just the FTEs associated with it. I'd look to the Director of Community Services to help me out here a little. Having said that, the costs associated with utilities and actually running are included in the budget.
Yeah. So I guess my question is, it doesn't, the hockey rink, it doesn't run at full cost recovery.
Yeah.
And so at some point that has to be accounted for. So I assume it is in here. I where that gets accounted for.
So I think going forward, my objective would be to include everything within this one service package, so to speak, so that you're seeing the full cost associated with bringing the facility online. And I'm just not so sure that we have it within the 465.
Okay.
There might be pieces in the 465, again, primarily related to the other pieces associated with utilities would be within the existing budget.
I mean, it doesn't impact the 1.6%. It's in there somewhere, but yeah. Does this cover everything? That number, I didn't have the answer. So, I don't think it's pertinent to know that for today or anything like that, but it'd be just interesting to know of what that additional ultimate cost is. Now, you mentioned you're funding it through growth and all that sort of stuff, which is great. But yeah, I appreciate the explanation.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Fair. Again, continuing with the operating budget, we